the energy signature no one can explain. When the first wave of data came back from the observatories after 3 ATS slipped behind the Sun, the global astronomy community held its breath. For weeks, the object had been hidden, lost in the glare. Then, on November 2nd, the signal returned. And with it, something no one expected. The readings didn't just show the object surviving its close pass by the Sun. They showed it had changed. Its spectral signature, the unique fingerprint of the elements and energy it emits, had shifted. And what appeared in the data wasn't anything that should exist in space. It was an emission line so sharp, so structured, that it could only mean one thing: this object was now producing energy in a way nothing natural could. Astronomers quickly realized they weren't just seeing reflected sunlight or thermal radiation. They were detecting a consistent, repeating pulse, like a rhythm embedded in the light itself. It wasn't random. Every 41 seconds, 3 released a burst of highly organized electromagnetic energy in the ultraviolet range. The intensity was precise, the intervals exact to the millisecond. In the universe, chaos is normal. This wasn't chaos, it was order. It was as if someone, or something, was deliberately signaling through the fabric of space. If you're fascinated by how science keeps uncovering mysteries that challenge everything we know about reality, this channel brings you the most mind-bending discoveries, the deep mysteries of the universe, and the stories science still can't explain. At first, teams thought it had to be an instrumental error, a glitch from radiation interference during solar conjunction. But when multiple observatories across different continents and satellites in separate orbits all reported the same readings, that excuse vanished. The pulse was real. Something massive, metallic, and alien was now radiating controlled energy near our Sun. The European Space Agency's solar orbiter was among the first to confirm it. Its magnetometers detected oscillations matching the same 41-second pattern, traveling outward like ripples through the solar wind. The waves were strong enough to distort the magnetic field across millions of kilometers. For context, nothing short of a powerful spacecraft drive system or a directed plasma reaction could create that kind of interference. Yet, there it was, coming from an object astronomers had insisted was just a comet. As the data poured in, scientists began comparing the energy bursts to those from human technology: radar sweeps, propulsion ignition cycles, or nuclear pulses. The similarities were unsettling. The amplitude of each pulse matched the kind of energy curve one expects from a high-efficiency reactor, only magnified by orders of magnitude. If this were truly artificial, it wasn't just a ship, it was something operating at a scale humanity could barely comprehend. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory went silent for nearly 2 days after receiving the first round of post-conjunction readings. Internally, emails leaked from researchers described a consistent energy rhythm incompatible with known natural mechanisms. In simpler terms, nature doesn't make precision clocks. Intelligence does. By November 6th, public statements began to surface. The official line was cautious. 3 ATLAS continues to display unusual spectral and dynamic properties currently under review. But behind closed doors, agencies were treating it as a controlled event. Observatories were directed to limit real-time data sharing. Several amateur astronomers reported their data feeds mysteriously shutting off mid-observation. And when independent researcher Dr. Elena Varga in Hungary published her spectrographic analysis online, her post vanished within hours. Still, fragments of her report circulated. In it, she described seeing a narrow band ultraviolet resonance structure overlapping with high-frequency EM harmonics, suggesting a deliberate modulation. Translated, the light wasn't just light. It carried information. If true, that would make 3 ATLAS not just a physical object, but a transmitter. A beacon, one possibly billions of years old, now active again after falling into our star's influence. But there was something else, something deeper. As observatories continued to study the emissions, they found the radiation wasn't random across the electromagnetic spectrum. The pulses aligned perfectly with hydrogen's natural resonance frequency. The same basic signal CTI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has long considered the most universal medium for interstellar communication. The odds of that being a coincidence, astronomers estimated less than 1 in 10 trillion. It was as if the object knew exactly what frequencies intelligent life would recognize, and now it was broadcasting directly on them. Meanwhile, physicists studying the object's motion noticed something equally bizarre. Instead of speeding up as it approached perihelion, as gravity should dictate, 3YT maintained an almost constant velocity, the only explanation a counteracting force. Something was keeping it steady, holding it in balance against the sun's immense gravitational pull. And if that wasn't enough, thermal readings from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory indicated its surface temperature hadn't risen at all during its closest pass. Somehow, it was resisting the sun's heat. The idea of a natural object doing that was impossible. A metallic structure maintaining a fixed velocity and internal energy output while orbiting within the solar corona was beyond any known physics. It could only mean one thing: active control. By November 10th, whispers began spreading in the scientific community. Some called it a technosignature, evidence of technology not made by humans. Others, more cautious, suggested an ancient automated probe, something launched long before Earth even existed. But among the data teams analyzing the pulse intervals, another revelation emerged, one that made everyone stop cold. The pattern of the bursts wasn't random at all. It formed a repeating numerical sequence: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, the first 7 prime numbers. It wasn't noise, it was mathematics, the universal language of intelligence. Across research forums and encrypted communication channels, one word began to appear again and again: message. The possibility that humanity had just received the first intentional interstellar signal didn't seem far-fetched anymore, and the fact that it came from an object physically within our solar system made it even more terrifying. Whatever had sent it, or built it, wasn't out there among the distant stars. It was here, close enough to see, close enough to touch, and perhaps close enough to respond. The United States Deep Space Network quietly retasked several of its massive communication dishes to scan the object directly. They transmitted a range of test signals from radio to X-band frequencies to see if the pulses would change. Nothing happened at first, but then, 8 hours later, the object emitted a single sharp return signal, so brief and so powerful it overloaded detectors in Canberra and Madrid simultaneously. The return lasted just 0.3 seconds but contained an energy density higher than any cosmic burst in recorded history. When scientists decomposed the signal, they found something stranger still. Embedded within the frequency pattern was a modulated sequence identical to the hydrogen line again, but mirrored. It was as if the object had received the message, processed it, and sent back a reflection, a kind of acknowledgement. That was enough to throw every astrophysical model into crisis. If the object could not only emit energy, but also respond intelligently, then the conclusion was inescapable: this was not just an interstellar rock. It was a machine. But what kind of machine could travel between stars for eons and still function flawlessly? Some pointed to the concept of von Neumann probes, self-replicating autonomous explorers theorized to be used by advanced civilizations to map galaxies. Others speculated it could be a kind of seed vault, carrying genetic or informational blueprints of extinct life from a vanished system. A few even dared to suggest it might be a warning, a cosmic signal meant to mark a dangerous region of space. Yet, for all the speculation, no one could explain the most haunting detail: why now? Why had it gone active only after passing near our sun? A theory soon took hold that the sun itself had triggered it. Its heat, gravity, or radiation may have acted as a kind of key, awakening whatever ancient system lay dormant within the object. If true, that meant it wasn't random that 3i entered our solar system. It was designed to. As November turned to December, new data revealed the object's orbit was stabilizing near Mercury's path, just inside the inner solar system. The odds of that happening naturally were practically zero. If the object had indeed been captured by the Sun, it would normally fall into a chaotic spiral. Instead, it was settling into a near-perfect elliptical orbit, predictable, clean, and controlled. And each time it rounded the Sun, the pulses continued, never deviating, never weakening. Humanity was now staring at what might be the oldest operating artifact in the galaxy. Somewhere above the solar glare, that silent, gleaming monolith continued to circle, pulsing its rhythm into the void. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just observing the cosmos. The cosmos was answering back. And that was just the beginning. The element that shouldn't exist. When the first material fragments from 3i were detected drifting through space, they looked like harmless cosmic dust, microscopic particles blown away by solar wind. But as these particles reached instruments aboard the Parker Solar Probe and ESA's Solar Orbiter, scientists realized they were anything but ordinary. The readings showed atomic signatures no one had ever seen before. And what they found would shake the foundations of chemistry itself. According to every law of physics we know, elements heavier than uranium, those past number 92 on the periodic table, can't exist naturally for long. They decay in seconds, breaking apart under their own instability. Yet, the particles coming from 3i contained an isotope that shouldn't exist at all, element 131. It had never been synthesized in any lab on Earth, never observed in any star, and yet here it was, stable, structured, and seemingly manufactured. The discovery was first reported by a European lab analyzing the dust particles trapped in the solar orbiter's collectors. Their detectors lit up with readings that showed a heavy atomic lattice with binding energy far beyond known nuclear models. What this meant was astonishing. This new element wasn't falling apart. It was holding together perfectly, even after traveling millions of kilometers through solar radiation. In other words, it was built to last. For days, the data was cross-checked and verified by independent teams. The isotope showed repeating decay cycles lasting longer than any known heavy element. It even appeared to absorb small amounts of solar energy rather than degrade under it, like it was self-recharging. NASA's materials scientists dubbed it, unofficially, Atlassium. Before we continue, if mysteries like this fascinate you, the kind that push the limits of science and make us question everything, then don't forget to subscribe to the Success Discovery. Here, we uncover the real stories behind cosmic discoveries, strange physics, and hidden truths the world rarely discusses. So, if you want to stay ahead of the next big revelation, hit subscribe now and join us in decoding the unknown. When word of the discovery leaked, social media went into meltdown. New element discovered from alien object trended across platforms, and for the first time, both mainstream and underground science communities agreed. Something revolutionary had been found. The properties of Atlassium didn't just defy our understanding of matter, they hinted at a technology so advanced it made human engineering look primitive. To understand why this was so shocking, imagine this: on Earth, we create heavy elements like uranium or plutonium inside reactors or particle accelerators, and even then, they're unstable. But 3i was releasing an element that stayed perfectly stable while being bombarded by solar radiation 1,000 times stronger than anything our machines can withstand. The material behaved as if it was engineered to survive inside stars. It didn't take long before scientists began asking the question no one wanted to say out loud: could this be the material the object itself is made of? If so, then 3i wasn't just some ancient probe or chunk of alien debris. It was a machine built from an element designed to last forever. a structure capable of enduring the heat of suns and the emptiness of interstellar space without decay. It was the ultimate alloy, the kind of material human civilization could only dream of creating. Researchers from MIT's Astrophysical Materials Lab ran simulated density models of the element's atomic structure. The results were stunning. Atlassium appeared to form self-binding crystalline networks that could realign themselves under stress. In other words, it could repair its own molecular damage. The material wasn't just durable, it was self-healing. That alone would make it a scientific miracle, but there was something even stranger. Within the same data, scientists found faint electromagnetic oscillations coming from the particles themselves, tiny waves of repeating energy pulsing through the atomic lattice. These weren't random, they matched the same 41-second rhythm previously detected from the object's ultraviolet pulses. Somehow, even fragments detached from the main body were still communicating in the same frequency pattern. This wasn't normal matter. It was information-bearing matter, atoms that could carry encoded signals within their energy states. The implications were staggering. If every molecule of Atlassium carried a piece of information, then the object itself could be a kind of database? A vast, solid-state archive of something ancient, intelligent, and enormous in scale. Not just a vessel but a library. A cosmic memory. It wasn't long before conspiracy theories erupted. Some claimed the element was proof of an ancient alien civilization that once colonized the stars. Others suggested it might be a kind of biological material, a living metal designed to evolve over time. But behind the noise, the scientific consensus was clear: nothing about 3I-ATOS fit into any natural category of celestial body. Not its motion, not its emissions, and certainly not the materials it produced. Then came the most chilling discovery of all. During a coordinated observation campaign in early December, the James Webb Space Telescope detected faint, reflected light patterns from the object's surface. When scientists broke down the reflection data, they found geometric patterns, perfectly repeating hexagonal structures on the surface. These were not random geological textures. They were symmetrical, engineered, and uniform across kilometers. Imagine looking at the surface of a machine built from microscopic, repeating tiles of metal, each one resonating in the same frequency as its neighbors. 3I-ATOS wasn't just metallic, it was manufactured at a molecular level. As this data spread among research institutions, governments began taking notice. The Pentagon's Space Command classified its own findings. The European Southern Observatory stopped releasing public updates. And for several days, NASA's public tracking site for 3I-ATOS went offline for maintenance. When it came back, much of the data from the previous 2 weeks had been removed. It didn't stop independent scientists, though. Dr. Suresh Kulkarni, an Indian astrophysicist working at the Venu Bapu Observatory, leaked his analysis of the remaining orbital data. He pointed out something extraordinary. The object's current orbit around the Sun wasn't random. It matched a resonance pattern. Every 88 days, its position would align precisely with Mercury's perihelion, as if it were locked in synchronization with the planet's path. This kind of resonant orbit is almost impossible without intelligent planning. Kulkarni described it in one haunting phrase: it's parking itself. But why would an interstellar object, one that could travel freely through space, choose to stay here? And what purpose could such a material, such a structure, possibly serve? As more physicists studied the data, one theory began to rise above the rest. A theory so bold that even its authors hesitated to publish it. They suggested that 3I-ATOS might not be a probe at all. It could be a power source, or even more disturbingly, a seed. Something designed to reactivate when exposed to certain stellar conditions. In this case, our Sun might have been the trigger. To test this idea, scientists focused on the radiation emitted by the object's pulses. They discovered that each emission wasn't uniform. Hidden in the data were secondary harmonics, tiny fluctuations suggesting the presence of quantum, level transitions happening in sync with the sun's magnetic field. It was as if the object wasn't just releasing energy, but absorbing and converting it, feeding on the sun's power to sustain itself. This possibility reignited debates in astrophysics. Could three-eyed Atlas be some form of energy harvesting construct? A machine built to orbit stars, gather power, and perhaps transmit it across space? If so, then the discovery of Atlassium, the element that shouldn't exist, wasn't just a scientific anomaly. It was a clue to the engineering of something far beyond human understanding. Reports from ESA's Plasma Research Unit confirmed that the object's surrounding field was intensifying. A faint electromagnetic halo had formed around it, detectable even from Earth-based instruments. Within that halo, the Atlassium dust particles were moving in unison, rotating in perfect synchronization with the 41-second pulse. Each particle acted like a tiny satellite, responding to a command that came from the object's core. Somewhere within that Manhattan-sized body, something was still alive, or at least active. A system older than our civilization, possibly older than our planet, was functioning as designed. In January 2026, just weeks after the discovery of Atlassium, astronomers announced something they had been hesitant to confirm. The object's orbit had stabilized permanently. It was now a new member of our solar system, classified as an artificial satellite of the Sun. Humanity had its first permanent interstellar artifact, and possibly its first encounter with technology not of this Earth. But as the excitement grew, a new fear began to take hold. For the first time, instruments began detecting subtle increases in background radiation from the object's location. Nothing dangerous but measurable. It was as if three-eyed Atlas was charging. Every pulse became slightly stronger, every orbit slightly more refined. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was waking up. By mid-February, the light pulses began to split into dual frequencies, one ultraviolet, one infrared. Together, they formed a binary rhythm unlike anything in astronomy. When decoded as binary digits, scientists noticed something terrifyingly deliberate. The sequence translated to 11101, the binary code for number 45, repeated endlessly. What could 45 mean? No one knew. Some believed it referred to the object's orbit 45 million kilometers from the Sun. Others saw it as a countdown, a signal, or a warning. Whatever it was, one thing was certain: this was not random behavior. Something in that cold metallic structure was calculating. Governments began holding classified meetings. CDI teams were ordered to cease all public updates. And across every major scientific network, silence fell. The world was staring at something so far beyond understanding that words no longer felt enough. Three-eyed Atlas was no longer just a visitor. It was a presence, and it was here to stay. And while the discovery of Atlassium had proven it was made of something impossible, the truth about what was inside the object was even stranger. Because as new high-resolution radar scans would soon reveal, three-eyed Atlas wasn't solid at all, and inside something was moving. The awakening inside three-eyed Atlas. By March 2026, the world's focus had turned entirely toward the inner solar system. Every major observatory, from the James Webb to the Solar Orbiter, was locked on a single target: three-eyed Atlas. The object that began as a faint interstellar blur had become the most monitored body in space. But the latest readings, those that started coming in from the radar arrays at Goldstone and Arecibo, contained something no one was ready for. Deep within the heart of the object, instruments detected a rhythmic pulse unlike the ultraviolet bursts seen before. This was lower frequency, deeper, almost seismic in nature. It came from inside the object. The amplitude rose and fell with perfect regularity every 41 seconds, again matching the energy pulse from its surface. It was as if the interior and exterior were working together, parts of a single living system awakening after eons of silence. Scientists began calling it the heartbeat. At first, the signal seemed harmless, but within a week, its intensity doubled. The object began to emit low-frequency gravitational waves. tiny ripples in spacetime itself, something no comet, asteroid, or natural body could possibly produce. That meant whatever was happening inside 3I Talas wasn't just chemical or magnetic. It was mechanical, operating on a scale that could bend the fabric of the universe. For context, even merging black holes barely produce detectable gravitational ripples. But this object, the size of Manhattan, was doing it with precision. Something inside was moving, massively and rhythmically, like a vast engine turning over after 1 billion years of rest. The first visual clue came on March 14th, when the European Space Observatory released enhanced imaging from the solar orbiter. What appeared on the scans left even hardened researchers silent. Beneath the object's dark metallic crust were moving structures, ring-shaped formations rotating slowly, counter to the object's outer spin. These inner rings glowed faintly, emitting radiation that suggested enormous internal temperatures. When scientists plotted their motion, they realized something even stranger. The inner rings weren't random. They were arranged in a perfect ratio, 1:2 say 3. This same ratio is used in harmonic resonance engineering, a concept in which energy systems amplify one another through synchronized vibration. In other words, 3I Talas wasn't just active, it was tuning itself. The data implied that the object had entered some kind of operational mode, self-regulating, adapting, and stabilizing. And whatever its purpose, the process was accelerating. By mid-March, the electromagnetic halo around the object had expanded dramatically. What once looked like a faint glow was now a distinct field stretching tens of thousands of kilometers outward. Within that field, plasma particles aligned into patterns, spiraling filaments that behaved like controlled energy streams. It looked, unmistakably, like a containment field. No one in the scientific community could explain it. NASA's public updates used cautious language, phrases like active magnetic structuring and anomalous field coherence. But off the record, researchers admitted what they suspected: this was technology operating far beyond human comprehension. If the field was truly intentional, it wasn't just protecting the object from solar radiation. It was manipulating it, channeling the sun's energy directly into its core. A living star feeding a sleeping machine. Then on March 19th, something happened that no one could have predicted. At 0321 UTC, the Parker Solar Probe, which was making a close pass near Mercury, detected a sudden surge of energy from 3I Talas. Instruments briefly overloaded, and for 20 seconds, the probe's cameras recorded something astonishing: a massive discharge of plasma,